Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Courtney Scales from CCIQ, and joining us today is Robert Hall-Bowman from our Employer Assistance team. He's our Senior Employer Assistance Advisor. Today we'll be talking about Christmas party chaos, how to manage the risks without looking like a Grinch. So as the festive season kicks in, so does the risks of claims arising from inappropriate workplace conduct at work functions, such as harassment, sexual harassment, bullying, discrimination, or workplace health and safety issues. It is important that you, as Santa, be proactive in setting up protections brought about by employees lodging claims. In this webinar, we will provide you with some simple steps to minimise the risk without coming across as the Grinch and ending up on everyone's naughty list. This webinar will go for about 20 to 25 minutes, and you will have some question time at the end of the webinar where we'll answer questions that you've asked. Alrighty, Rob, do you want to take that one away?
Thanks, Courtney. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. So our aim today is to ensure that everyone listening in can walk away from the webinar with some helpful hints to reduce the risk of any work functions going awry. And hopefully most of you online today haven't yet had your Christmas party, so you might be able to take a point or two away. As we know, alcohol-fueled end-of-year work functions can be an absolute minefield of claims waiting to happen without the proper precautions in place. So where we start really is to determine when a party or when an event is actually classed as a workplace event. So for a business to be legally liable for events that occur at a Christmas party or end-of-year work function, it's got to be considered a workplace event officially. So on the other hand, this can extend beyond something which is specifically labelled as an end-of-year function or Christmas party, and it can include something as informal as a round of mini golf one day after work with the boss, or even unplanned or spontaneous event just like an after party, a Christmas party after party. So what I've included today in front of you is some points on factors that will assist you in determining whether a function is really defined as a workplace event. So some of these might include whether the employer has sponsored or funded the event, if the employer is organised or involved in organising the event or issuing invitations, whether attendance is voluntary or whether the employer expects all staff to attend, for example, by requiring employees who didn't attend the party to actually stay at work. Also, if employees consider it a perk of employment to attend the event, whether the employer benefited from the event, for example, by having the opportunity to present awards or network with clients. Now, the next couple of slides are probably the most important slides for you to see today, and hopefully I will go over these briefly at the last slide today, but there's some key points in here, and if you can tick all the boxes, you're well on your way to having a good function and not looking like the Grinch. So first of all, you just need to make it clear to employees that the rules you set for appropriate workplace behaviour under the business roof also apply to work functions, and that's regardless of whether they're on site or they're held at the pub down the road. You need to ensure that your policies on discrimination, sexual harassment, drug and alcohol, workplace health and safety, social media, and your disciplinary policies are also in place before the event. You need to make it clear to employees that events away from work are only authorised for a specific period. Now, this is a really important one. Have a designated start and finish time for the event. So, for example, if you're having an evening event and you're saying 5 p.m. to 11 p.m, make sure you say 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. and not a roundabout. It's important so that employees know from the start that the designated function, the designated time for the work event is set between those hours. And if you happen to have the function or event on site, make sure that after that 11 p.m. deadline or whatever the time may be, that staff are vacate the premises. I've heard some real horror stories over the years of parties sort of rolling on in the employers, on the property, and all sorts of things happening. So I'm sure everyone here listening today has probably got a story or two they can share, but we'll keep rolling on anyway. So this is at the bottom of the slide here. Responsible service of alcohol is critical, and if you're not in a licensed venue, then that falls more so on the employer, unfortunately, to make sure that you limit the ability for employees to consume excessive amounts of alcohol, where it's possible. So really, to put it back on employees, you need to remind them that it's their responsibility to drink alcohol responsibly and legally, and you need to ensure that all the employees are aware of the legal driving limits and repercussions of drinking in excess. Now, you would think that everybody would be aware of that, but as part of the whole reminder of obligations, you would be doing the right thing by touching on that as well. Also, just consider the location of the function and when it starts and where people meet up. So it might be a good idea to provide your employees with travel to and from the function, particularly if it's a long distance from your workplace. Now, this isn't a requirement at all, but just say, for example, if you're having a Christmas party on the Gold Coast, then it might be a good idea to get everyone together to travel down and back. If it's a case of a large number of staff, and not everyone actually having a car to drive, for instance. But aside from that, there should be at least some discussion or mention with staff about organising travel arrangements, so that nobody's sort of put on the spot or comes to you at last minute saying, "Oh, I can't do this. I've got no way of getting down there." And I'll just go to the last point there, which is really important, and I guess everyone listening today is probably already doing this if they haven't already done so. Just refamiliarise yourself with company policy, disciplinary procedures. So, if misconduct does arise, it can be effectively managed right from the outset. So, post-party fallout and running late for work. I'm sure you've all probably experienced it at some time and another, where somebody's late for work after a Christmas party, and I mean, employees have to be mindful not to be overzealous with the celebrations in general, whether it's one Christmas party or the season in general. They need to remember they're still employed to work and to come to work at a certain time, and arriving later than the specified start time, could be a breach of contract. But having said that, we'd like to think that one-off occasions, most employers would see reason this time of year and might overlook the occasional lateness. But I will say, however, that persistent lateness is something entirely different. So, I mean, if there is an absence due to a post-to-work function, and this is just one in a line of many, late entrances into the workplace, an employer in that circumstance would be perfectly justified in instigating a disciplinary procedure to address the issue with the employee or employees. So we'll go back over those points, the key points that you take away from today's webinar, hopefully. So just make sure you remind staff that it's a work event. Even though it may not be under the roof, the same rules apply, whether it's on site or not. And make sure you've got up-to-date policies and procedures, and that they're easily accessible to staff before the event. And employees need to know that these policies continue to apply at the work events, and employees, are aware of what the consequences would be if they, fail to observe those policies. make sure you have that designated start-finish time for the event, for the official event, and make sure that where possible before the event, provide employees with information about possible transport options to and from safely, have them speak amongst themselves about arranging carpooling as an example, and also importantly to make sure that employees have the details of a responsible contact person at the event in circumstances that they need assistance or have any concerns. And 99% of that time that falls back on the boss, but it's important nonetheless to have that in place. Now, some of you maybe have a list of your policies and procedures and may be satisfied that you have everything in place. And some of you might be scratching your head as to what you actually need to cover off. So if you have a moment today, have a look at the CCIQ bookstore and just go to that website, cciqtemplates.com.au. So on there, you'll find a variety of template policies and procedures that are available to download, and there's discounted rates there for HR assistant people managers members as well. And we've also got in there some comprehensive guides on some tricky topics such as how to conduct lawful terminations and managing redundancies and managing performance and or misconduct issues. And these guides are quite comprehensive. And what I will say though is that aside from these, anything you would purchase in the bookstore as ready-made, ready to go, if you have any queries at any time about any workplace issues, please just give myself or Jason or Sarah a call at the Employer Assistance team, and we can help you out. Right, so I might just quickly just move on and briefly let you know, like some of you mightn't be aware, but CCIQ have recently partnered with the Queensland Office of Industrial Relations to provide workers' comp advice to all Queensland businesses through the workers' comp hotline that we've got here. So today I'll just briefly go through the small business programs and the resources on offer. And these can all be accessed through WorkSafe Queensland's website, and I've got the exact details of that in a couple of slides from now. So first of all, workers' compensation assistance. So the ON series is a suite of free education presentations developed specifically for small businesses. So it provides listeners with access to strategies to use in one of, if one of the workers gets injured while at work, and provides you with an understanding of what processes are available to businesses, such as dealing with a potentially fraudulent claim or lodging a review if you don't agree with a decision made by WorkCover about a claim. And topics released all throughout the year. And if you are on the WorkSafe Queensland website, you can sign up to the Work e-bulletin, and you'll get topics and information sent through, alerts sent through to your email. So there are programs in place dependent upon the size of the business. So the Office of Industrial Relations Workplace Assistance Program works closely with Queensland businesses to ensure systems are in place to prevent workplace injury, and if people are injured, return them to meaningful and appropriate work as soon as practical. Now, a team of experienced advisors from the office are located throughout Queensland to work with employers to make simple but effective enhancements to their health and safety and injury management systems. So working in collaboration, these government advisors and the employer will basically review the current safety management systems and rehab and return to work arrangements, identify and verify workplace hazards, evaluate workplace safety climate and seeking the views of everyone, workers, managers, and also develop improvement plan tailored to the individual needs of the business. So it's essentially a health and safety review. So there's 3 program delivery options, and they're based on business size, basically. So the Injury Prevention and Management, or IPAM Advance, targets the larger businesses and offers a comprehensive 2-year program. So an advisor will be assisting over a longer period, and as you can imagine, you would have some be able to get some data within your own workplace about changes, and about you would be able to see if there are any visible changes as a result of the introduction. You've got IPAM Evolve, which is a series of short site-based consultations across a 3 to 6 month intervention, and that's for medium-sized businesses at varying stages of maturity. And you've also got the IPAM for small business, which is a 3-hour advisory service for small or micro businesses. So the other services that are provided under the Workplace Assistance Program include the delivery of presentations, information sessions and forums for target groups, and development of tools, templates and guidance materials. And you will see us, CCIQ, out on the road delivering some of these presentations and information sessions on behalf of the Office of Industrial Relations as well in 2018. So the Healthy Workers Initiative. So as we know, the focus of work health and wellbeing programs is to reduce the risk of chronic disease, i.e. cancer and cardiovascular disease. But to do this, these programs focus on the chronic disease lifestyle-related risk factors that are modifiable, where people will modify them, including smoking, poor nutrition, alcohol, physical inactivity, obesity and mental health conditions. And there's also the Healthy Workers Toolkit. So the initiative has a wide range of evidence-based resources to support you to improve health and wellbeing in your workplace. So WorkSafe have an advisory team of 6 staff, and they also have a planning guide which outlines how to get started and includes a 5-step framework to implementing health and wellbeing program. So on their website, that's worksafe.qld.gov.au, under the Work Health and Wellbeing section, there's a number of useful articles, films and general informational brochures and fact sheets. And there's also there some case studies as well. So if you want to have a look at those, just jump on the WorkSafe website. And of course, access to all that information on the website is free for everybody. And at CCIQ here, we have the Workers' Compensation Helpline as well. So you can call us directly on that 1300 number, and we can assist you as well if you have any queries in relation to workers' compensation. That's it, folks. That's the end of the webinar, and I'll just hand back to Courtney now. And thanks very much for listening, and I look forward to answering any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Rob, for that interesting webinar. It's good to learn the pitfalls and the ways that we can safely protect our business during the Christmas party season. Look, we do have some time to run through some questions. Starting with the getting home obligations. What obligations do employers have to employees to get them home safely around a Christmas party?
Okay, good question. Very important to deal with this. So essentially, you need to make sure that employees, your obligations go as far as the party or the function as such, except organising or assisting with the organisation of transport is something that's really important. So prior to the event, for example, if staff are advised of an event and the plan is that everyone will meet at the off-site event, then you might also be saying to staff, make sure that you know, the events between this time, start and finish time, please work on your arrangements. If anyone has any concerns about travel arrangements or can't arrange something, please come and see us, and we'll assist where we can. So, you know, at the end of the day, you might find that you know, an employee agrees to be the designated driver, and halfway through the party they have a few drinks and say, sorry guys, I'm not the designated driver anymore, you'll have to find your own way home. That might pop up. You're certainly not obligated to you know, to have to organise transport for people to get home, but you know, you might you certainly would have an obligation to try and assist in every way that you possibly could, you know, any reasonable way anyway, to make sure people get home safely. Alrighty, any other questions?
Yeah, okay. So we have another question. What about employees' partners? What's the duty of care around employees' partners and looking after them at the party?
I think employees' partners are very lucky to get invited to a Christmas party. I don't know if I've ever been to one where I've had the partner invited. Seriously though, if a partner is invited, if partners are welcome to a party, there's still going to be, I mean, health and safety obligations, you know, and all those other legal obligations are still going to apply, apart from workers' compensation, obviously. But to the extent that those people at the party need to comply with the company's policies and procedures as well. I mean, they're invited guests to the party, and you know, they are to act in the same way as everyone else at the party. I haven't heard of any absolute horror stories of any partners up to mischief, but you know, it's still important that if partners are to come, that they're well made aware of their obligations as well, and what the company expectations of their partners, the employees of the business, are. Thanks, Courtney.
No worries. We do have another question. Are there types of entertainment that should be avoided?
So that's a really good question. Depending on your workplace, I guess, but entertainment that may cause offence or humiliation is something you know, you really need to be aware of. But a good idea, if you're planning a workplace party, is to obviously have a chat with staff and see what they're keen to do. It might be a case where you do the same thing every year and everybody's happy, or it might be a case where you've got some new people in the business that have got some cool ideas for a Christmas party. But you just need to make sure that whatever you organise, it's an inclusive function, and nobody feels you know, threatened, embarrassed, or humiliated in any way at all by anything that's going on at the party. And of course, where alcohol is served, which you know, is the case, and there may be situations where you know, people may not be drinking at all. So you've obviously still under you know, to serve alcohol responsibly, you still should have, you know, non-alcoholic drinks available. Well, I guess that goes without saying, but yeah, that would probably be the key points that I'd say on that. Thanks.
So basically, to sum up on that one, is just consult your staff and make sure that it is appropriate for the workplace, no matter what industry you're in.
That would be it, Courtney. Hit the nail on the head.
Great. Alrighty. We do have one other question. And this one's a bit of a double-edged sword with this one. The day after, what if an employee just simply doesn't turn up and say they do have a medical certificate, but you think they're telling porkies? And then on the back of that one, what if an employee does turn up but they're late? Are you able to deduct their pay?
Okay, so we might deal with the pay deduction one first. So under the Fair Work Act, deductions from wages or entitlements are only permitted where they're to the benefit of the employee. Even if an employee had a clause in their contract that said, if I'm late, you can deduct from my pay, that would technically wouldn't be enforceable under the Fair Work Act, and certainly we wouldn't be recommending employers go down that path if they were considering. But really, you know, at the end of the day, if somebody's late and they're going to make the time up elsewhere, is an option that you could have. Just in relation to that, the first question, someone coming in with a medical certificate, it would come down. Firstly, a medical certificate supplied by a medical practitioner is unfortunately something that you would need to accept. However, there are going to be circumstances. There may be circumstances where you know, you have reasonable suspicions that it's fraudulent. You know, you can check with the surgery to check that the actual certificate has been issued by that doctor. You can check that through the reception at the surgery generally. Or with the doctor directly. Also, at the end of the day, what evidence do you have to see that the person's is not what they were going to do? So, you know, you see someone who's, at the end of the day, you might see somebody at the Christmas party who looks like they've consumed a fair bit of alcohol. The party finishes, you don't know what else has happened later that night, you know, so they could have injured themselves elsewhere. But really, on the face of it, if you have someone coming in with a medical certificate, usually that's out of fear of repercussion for being late or something. So, you know, it goes back to that slide I said where, you know, if you're going to say to staff, look, we're having this function, it's finishing at night, so, you know, a few sore heads and a later start in the morning at 10 is fine with us. Or to try and avoid all that, have a daytime function, have a lunchtime function. So, you know, try and mitigate your risk essentially. Thanks, Courtney.
No, thank you, Rob. That is all the time that we do have for today. I would like to thank everyone for joining today's webinar. You will receive a copy of this webinar and the slides early next week. Thank you again for joining, and I do look forward to welcoming you to another webinar in the future. Have a lovely weekend, everyone.